Hey, BassGeek here, and today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to fish an underspin any time of year. So if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know I'm a big soft plastic swim bait guy. And one of my favorite ways to rig a soft plastic swim bait is on an underspin. Now for me, there's really only one version of underspin I use. It's the Ledgehead Lures Tennessee River Bling. Now I'm going to go over some of the things that you can do to tweak this bait out to make it do things that no other underspin can do. So the great thing about the Ledgehead 2 is it comes in such an array of sizes. This is one of my favorite sizes. This is a 3/8 ounce. It's got a 4/0 hook. They come in an array of hook sizes. So you can fish them all the way down to a 2.8 size, those rib styles, those Recons or Kitex. You can fish them all the way up. He makes them in an ounce and 3/8 with a 10/0 hook in them. So you can fish these at any size for any prey that you can imagine. And guys, one of the things that I think is seriously overlooked is actually fishing those 4 and 5 inch swim baits, those, those kind of go-to soft plastic swim baits, like, my favorite, the Patriot. There's a lot of different versions of the hollow bodies out there, and Bastrix and the Zoom Swimmer. You wouldn't believe the amount of bites you'll get during the summer when you're ledge fishing, or during the fall when they're schooling, when you throw that big underspin on that bigger swim bait. So one of the tweaks that you can make to this right off the bat, as soon as you get it, guys, this is a very thick, very stiff wire. I mean, it is very stiff. It takes quite a bit to bend. So one of the things that I love to do, and what makes this a great swim bait, or a great swim bait head right out of the box, is that you can fish, and this being one of my favorite styles, is Bass Munitions Patriot. This is a 3.5. Now if you put this bait, because it is a very thick bellied bait, if you put this on a lot of underspins, this blade is going to hit the belly and it's not going to spin really well. Now for you guys that like to fish docks, something else that you can do, it doesn't take a whole lot to bend that off to the side. Now you make a cast down the side of a dock, and this thing is going to run up underneath that dock for you. Now one of the things I love to do, a tweak that I fish constantly, especially when I know that they're feeding on smaller bait fish, is I bend this wire straight down. And what that ends up doing is giving you two bait fish. You've got a smaller bait fish and a larger bait fish. Now sometimes, especially when you're fishing for smallmouth, they can target the blade instead of the bait. Even on the smaller blades, they'll just come in underneath of the bait and miss that hook. So one of the tweaks that I came up with a few years ago, and I'm sure I didn't come up with this, but it's something that I'd never seen anybody do, was this. So the great thing about that wire, and you can see this head has been used. I've caught fish off this head. You can go back and watch some of the videos where I've caught fish off this particular head. So what I decided to do was put me a treble hook on here. Now you leave the swivel, so the treble hook spins, got a red treble hook, and I put a white feather on it so that I didn't lose 100% of my flash where I'm taking the blade off. So the feathered treble worked out pretty good, but VMC, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sponsored by VMC at all, but they really came out with something, and it comes in a variant of different sizes, something that's pretty cool, and it's a treble hook with a blade hanging from the center of the treble. So one of the other reasons why I love Ledgehead in general, and this design is throughout all of his swim bait heads, is this design right here. If you'll notice, the top of the head, most of the weight is on the keel. And you can see how it contours around the swim bait. Well, what that does is it creates, just on the swim bait head, a dual action. So when the tail gets to shaking, that weight, that keel weight, gets to wobbling, so you get a nice head wobble. So now you end up, everybody loves to talk about secondary action, but now you've got 3 different types of drawing power. And that's why I love these baits, is because you've got so much. You've got a head wobble, you've got a tail wiggle, and you've got a blade flash. What other bait's going to give you that and still be considered subtle? So now let's talk about rod, reel, and line setup. So what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you the rod, reel, line setup and the bait size that I kind of have as my go-to. My Fish Anywhere, it's a great place for you to get started and get bites almost immediately. And that is really my 3/8 ounce, either a 4/0 or a 3/0. The 2 size baits I'm going to use a Patriot minnow. So any swim bait that is 3.5 inches long, all right, or the 3.8 when you're in those rib, like the Recon Shad from Bass Munitions. Rod, reel, and line for that particular setup. The rod itself, this is a Killer Bass Baits rod, and it's one that I've been using for that setup forever and a day. This is a 7'3". You can go with a 7 foot to a 7'3". This is a medium heavy fast action, but it's actually a little bit more on the softer side. So it loads a little deeper into the rod, so it's close to maybe a medium fast action. The reel that I use, guys, I'm telling you, the BB1 Pro by Lew's, it's got a nice wide spool so you can make a nice long cast. Guys love to crank with this, but I'm telling you, anything you want to do with moving baits, this reel is the deal. As always, when it comes to swim baits, really of any kind, underspin or otherwise, I'm going with a 6, a medium 6. I don't want it on the high end. I don't want to go up to that 6'8". I don't want to go down to that 6 even, 6'1". I want it 6'3", 6'4". This is a 6'5", and I think that is a great place. You don't want to overpower that bait. You don't want to reel it back too fast. And a 6'5" is a great speed to really keep your depth level under control. So now let's talk about line. I'm going to throw it on fluorocarbon. You know I fish a lot of clear lakes. This lake right here is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 foot clear today, if not more in some places. So I'm going to throw it on fluorocarbon. Generally, I'm going to throw it on 15-pound test. I will go down to 12 because this bait is lighter and it will keep it down in the water if I'm fishing deeper, but not around anything that's going to really cause it to get, nicked up. So if I'm out there ledge fishing, 12-pound test, perfect for it. So let me talk to you about retrieves. Retrieves on this bait, I'm always going to make the longest cast I can make. I'm either going to do one of two things. I'm going to let it sink to the bottom, which is 90% of the time. Once that bait sinks to the bottom, I'm going to give it a couple of quick reel turns, and then it's going to be a nice, slow, steady retrieve. Now, one thing about these baits that I can tell you, if you think you're going slow, slow down because you're going too fast. And if you think you're going slow enough then, slow down again because I promise you, you're still going too fast. As a matter of fact, I'm going way too fast right here. Now, the other retrieve is going to be when I'm counting the bait down. It's going to be the same exact retrieve. I'm going to keep it very slow, but the only difference is something is going to key me in that either those fish are suspended or they're chasing shad. Now in that case, I'm going to make a cast. And that was a horrible one. But I'm going to make a cast and I'm going to count it. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and then I'm just going to start reeling. Now, the shallower you're fishing this back, the quicker you're going to have to turn your reel. That's all a feel thing, guys, though. You've just got to kind of get used to how that particular weight, that particular bait that you're putting on that underspin feels. Now, if you need any tips about counting down, I've got a great video. It's part of my ledge series, but in the fall, it works too, especially if they're chasing shad. And I'm going to tell you, if they're not biting your top water, that right there, when they're chasing shad out in open water, give it a try, because you won't believe how well that can work. So let's talk about some of the places that I like to fish this bait. And it's pretty much anywhere where bait fish are going to be. I mean, you name it. This, great way to cover water in the fall. Go down a bank, get tight to it, and just reel the bait back. A lot of times you're going to be able to cover water, you're going to get bites. In clear water, especially on days like this where it's slick, there is no other search bait, in my opinion, on earth that's going to get you bit like an underspin. So one of the other places, and it's simple, guys, it's everyday, the everyday sort of stuff that you're gonna use these underspins, and it's a point. You know, generally when I'm fishing a point, I'm gonna fish down one side and the other. I like to be coming from, not coming into, but unless I know that they're pushing the fish up. But a lot of times the bass will set out and wait for these fish to come up to attack. Now, the other places during the summer, the ledges, you guys, I've got a ton of videos if you go back and watch during the summer to show, you can see how I use these baits, these underspins, fishing ledges. And guys, believe it or not the trout, unless of course there's trout in the lake, but that size or a ½ ounce, this is the exact kind that's my favorite to throw on the ledges. Make sure you go out. There is not a wrong time in the world, a wrong season to use an underspin. Guys, I'll tell you again, this bait is great. Go out, pick you some up, whether they're ledge head, which are my favorite, pick you up some Bass Munitions baits to go on them, which also, that's just my favorite. Put them together, and it's a bait that can't be beat. Now, as always, if you have any questions about fishing the underspin, no matter what the season, no matter what the time of year, no matter what the type of water, leave those questions, comments in the comment section below. You guys know I love to talk about fishing with you. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell so you get those notifications when the videos come out. And you guys rock.